This lesson is about the quadratic formula. So first of all, you must know the quadratic formula, and that is x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, the whole thing over 2a. And this is something that needs to be memorized, and we'll talk more about that in class. What this is used for is to solve for x-intercepts. Again, we're solving for x-intercepts just like we would if we were factoring, but this is, if something is not factorable, we can use the quadratic formula. It'll give all those irrational answers. And what happens when we have a negative underneath the radical? When we have a negative underneath the radical, we need to take it away. So for example, the square root of negative 16, you will split into the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 16, because we can evaluate the square root of 16 as 4, and the square root of negative 1 we're going to call I. I is represented by the square root of negative 1, so we can then say this is 4I. So it's important to understand that I is equal to the square root of negative 1. Anytime you have a negative underneath a radical, you will just pull it out by pulling out the imaginary unit of I. So the square root of negative 25, you are going to take out the imaginary part, that's the I, and then you will be able to evaluate the square root of 25, so it's I times 5, which is equal to 5I. All right, so using the quadratic formula, we have to find our A, our B, and our C. So again, opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, the whole thing over 2A. And this is going to define our two x values. Our A value is the number in front of the x squared, the B value is the number in front of the x, and the C is the constant by itself. And using the formula, it says opposite of B, so it's going to be a positive 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared, or 36, minus 4 times A, and the A value is a 1, times the C, which is 8. And the whole thing is over 2 times A, 2 times 1, or simply 2. This is going to give us, again, our two x values. The next part is the most important part, and it is to find that discriminant, this value right here. You will evaluate that before you do anything further. So we're going to do a little side work. We have 36 minus 4 times 1 times 8, which is 32. And 36 minus 32 is equal to 4. So we are going to replace all of this right here with that value of 4. And then we have 6 plus or minus the square root. There's our 4. All of this is over 2. And this is going to give us, again, our two x values. The square root of 4 right here is a perfect square, so we can evaluate that. That we know is equal to 2. So now we have 6 plus or minus 2 all over 2. And this plus or minus gives us two equations, 6 plus 2 and 6 minus 2. So we will evaluate that as 6 plus 2 divided by 2. And then using the minus sign, 6 minus 2, all that divided by 2. 6 plus 2 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. 6 minus 2 is 4, divided by 2 is equal to 2. And our two x values are going to be x is equal to 4 and x is equal to 2. Those are your two x-intercepts, your two zeros for this equation. Okay, if you look at the next one, this is not in standard form, highest exponent to lowest exponent equal to 0. So to get it equal to that, we have to first add 7. That's going to give us x squared minus 4x plus 7, and that's equal to 0. That will now help us to find our A, our B, and our C. The A value is the value in front of the x squared, B is in front of the x, and the C is the value by itself, keeping all the signs with it. So x equals opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A. And let's do it. X equals the opposite of B, the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4, plus or minus the square root. B squares, we have negative 4 squared, or you could just write 16, minus 4 times A is 1, times C is 7. The whole thing, beginning to end, is over 2 times a, or 2 times 1, simply 2. Remember, just like last time, we have to evaluate this discriminant right here. So we're going to do the math underneath the radical. And what we have is 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times 1 times 7. 4 times 1 is 4, times 7 is 28. And 16 minus 28 is a negative 8. So I'm going to replace what's underneath the radical with a negative 8. And now I have 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 8. And all of this is over 2 times 1, or 2. Now we have that negative under the radical that we were talking about, that we have to pull that imaginary part out. We have to take the negative out, which is going to pull out an I. So now I have 4 plus or minus I times the square root of 8, and all this is over 2. And I have one final step, and that is to take and simplify this right here. So if I break the 8 down into primes, I have 2 and 4, 2 and 2. I have a pair of 2's, which is going to take 1 to the outside. I have 1 2 that's left, which will keep that inside. And I'm going to replace that radical of 8 with 2 square root of 2. That'll then give me 4 plus or minus. You'll write the number first, then the I, just like you write 2x. You do the same thing with the imaginary unit. Then I'll write my radical of square root of 2, and the whole thing is over 2. And these are my two x values, one with the plus, one with the minus. We'll talk about how we can reduce that later, but at this point in time, you'll leave your answer just like that. One final one, and it's a pretty big one. First of all, this has to be in standard form. We have to move both of these things over to the left by doing the opposite so that the right-hand side can equal 0. So I'm going to subtract 12x and add 9, all to the right side, combining only my like terms. So I have 25x squared. I'll combine my x's right here to get negative 30x and add the 9, and that's equal to 0. Now I have some big numbers here. I have a being 25. I have my b of negative 30, and my c is 9, positive 9. And again, I'll write the quadratic formula up here. Opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I will go ahead and use my formula. I have the opposite of b. The opposite of negative 30 is positive 30. Plus or minus the square root. And I have that negative 30, which is going to be squared, minus 4 times a is 25, times c is 9. Big fraction bar all over 2 times a, 2 times 25. Again, just like all the other problems, I have to evaluate this discriminant right here. Negative 30 squared is a positive 900. And then I have 4 times 25, which is 100. 100 times 9 is 900. So I have 900 minus 900, which is 0. And I will replace what's under the radical with a 0. And then I have all over 50. And the square root of 0 is actually a perfect square, kind of. I mean, square root of 0 is just 0, so it really doesn't mean anything. So if I go 30 plus or minus 0 all over 50, that's the same as saying 30 plus 0 all over 50, and 30 minus 0 all over 50, which of course that minus 0 doesn't mean anything. You get 30 over 50 for both of these, and when it's reduced, you get 3/5. And you will have only one answer for this, where x is equal to 3/5. And sometimes you will get one answer, most times you get two, which are emphasized by that plus or minus that's right there. Just a few things to remember, that what we're doing is we're finding the solutions when we're using the quadratic formula, and those are called zeros. They're x-intercepts if we were to graph them, and that is it. You can now do your 8.3 worksheet on using the quadratic formula. Thanks. Have a good day.